I've already shot this video once and it came out at like 20 minutes long, which is frankly ridiculous because today we're talking about backing up your digital music, which is incredibly important, but also does not need to be complicated. It's kind of funny when you think about it that backing up your music was never a thing back when every DJ only played these. I could easily snap this in half right now. It's also incredibly trivial to scratch one, rendering it unplayable. They do eventually wear out if played enough. And if you're foolish enough to leave one in a car on a hot day, it can easily warp again, making it unplayable. But the thing is, barring natural disasters like fire and flood, it's really quite difficult to lose or destroy an actual record collection of any significant size. If you own, say, 1,000 records, you go to a gig and somebody steals your record bag with 50 records in it out of your car, that is a bad thing, but you do still have 950 records back at home. As a digital DJ, however, it's quite feasible that you could have your entire music library on the drive inside your laptop, or even on a USB stick or a tiny SSD. And any of those is absolutely vulnerable to being lost, stolen, or damaged beyond repair in the blink of an eye. So here are 5 ways to back up your music files which I'd recommend you check out.
The first thing you need to do is to get your music onto a second drive of some kind. I'd recommend a portable SSD for this. They are fast, they have no moving parts as a potential failure point, and these days are affordable. You can usually pick up a 2TB version of my favourite drive, the Samsung T7, for around €100. I know some people are still skeptical of the lifespan of SSDs, but if you check out the MTF, mean time to failure ratings, of current big brand SSDs, you'll find them rated far, far beyond the amount of data you'll ever be using to back up your DJ music. Of course, any drive can suffer a catastrophic hardware failure, but that's, why we're doing backups. Backing up could be as simple as copying your music folder over to that drive every few weeks, but I prefer to automate the process if possible. Mac users can take advantage of Apple's Time Machine, but I like Carbon Copy Cloner, which creates a bootable backup of your entire drive and can be scheduled as often as you like. I have mine set up to back up all my important drives once a week, so all I have to do is make sure I switch everything on a Sunday morning, and by the afternoon all my data is backed up. Windows users, I believe there are apps like Acronis True Image and Clonezilla which do the same job on that operating system, so please let me know down in the comments what you're using. If you only have a small library, it could be tempting to use a USB stick for backup, and whilst that is affordable, the flash memory in those is not designed to last as long as that on a typical SSD. So for this purpose, I'd suggest you spend the extra on a dedicated drive if you can. The next thing we need to do is get a copy of your music off-site in case of natural disasters or something equally bad. You could go old school, get a third drive and store it away from your home, but then you have to remember to update that manually now and again. It's a lot of work to keep current. So again, I'd recommend automating the process and using cloud storage. I've recommended Backblaze in the past and I still do. It backs up everything on your main drive and any externals you use as well. The amount of data backed up is unlimited and it only costs around €10 a month. It uploads in the background whenever you're connected to the internet unless you pause it, and is ideal for backing up large amounts of data, as other cloud services can be very expensive on a per terabyte basis. Recently I've discovered something else though, Dropbox Backup. I've actually had a Dropbox account for well over a decade, but I only ever used it as, I guess the clue is in the name, a Dropbox. Temporary file storage and for sharing stuff. I was rarely going above using more than 10% of my available storage. But now I'm using their backup feature, which takes folders of your choice and syncs them to your Dropbox storage pool. It's not the same as their regular folder sync, which means you have to keep the files in your Dropbox folder or set up dynamic links. This is just a straight backup, exactly in this case what we need. So on my DJ laptop I simply have my whole music folder syncing to Dropbox Backup. I've scheduled it for once a week, and that's the only area where it doesn't seem quite perfect. Sometimes it will try and start syncing when I don't want it to at a gig, but it's trivial to pause that sync, and otherwise I'm very happy with the results. Even if my whole laptop dies or is stolen, I can easily pull down that music folder from any other computer. It's not as good value as Backblaze, it's also around €10 a month, but you only get 2 terabytes of storage. For my current DJ library though, that is plenty, and I can still use all the remaining storage as I was before as a Dropbox. Every time I make a video about backup, multiple people chime in down in the comments telling me to get a NAS drive, and so this time I looked seriously at that option. For the uninitiated, NAS stands for Network Attached Storage. On a basic level, it's a drive or unit with multiple drives, which doesn't connect directly to your computer, but instead is hooked up to your local network and accessible from any device on that network, and often from other locations across the internet too. The thing about a NAS is that it's not just a dumb drive. It is effectively a small headless computer, and it has the potential to do a lot of stuff. Not only can they do automated backups, but also host virtual machines, work as a personal music or video server, serve as a smart home hub, host websites or email servers, a plethora of different things. So I went out and bought one. I went for a TerraMaster unit as they sent me a different device to review, so I wanted to keep things consistent. I got their most affordable 2-bay NAS, the F2-212, which costs around €150 and populated the 2 drive slots with 12TB Hitachi NAS hard drives. It has a 1.7 GHz quad-core ARM CPU, a gigabyte of RAM, and runs on the company's own TOS operating system. It was quite a novel experience having to use a whole new OS to set up something which I was really just using as a backup drive, but the process was straightforward, and soon enough I had everything scheduled and set up ready to keep my music backed up regularly without any intervention from me. I could even program the unit itself to power on and off at the required times, so it wasn't running constantly. Energy prices are pretty wild here in the UK these days. I set up the 2 drives in a RAID 1 configuration. This means I only get 12TB of total space from a pair of 12TB drives, but the data is written to both of those drives simultaneously. This adds redundancy and means that in the event of one drive dying, the data is still there and safe on the other drive. My conclusion, having used a NAS now, is that it's a bit unnecessary for me. I just want it for backup. I don't want to do any of the other stuff which a NAS offers. And unless you have a very fast network and the hardware to match, it's not as fast as current USB specs for day-to-day storage. So I prefer a direct attached or DAS option instead. Having a NAS might well be a great option for you though, and if you think it might be, I'd recommend checking out the channel NAS Compares here on YouTube if you'd like to learn more. The main thing I learnt from my NAS test is that I love the idea of having redundancy in the system by having those drives set up in a RAID, a redundant array of independent disks. I also have a ton of data, not just my music but also the files for making these videos, etc., and I'm sick of having 6 external spinning drives sat there on my desk. So when I came across the €330 D8 hybrid from TerraMaster, I reached out to them and had them send me one for review. It looks at first glance like their NAS devices, but it is far more straightforward. It's a powered enclosure which can support up to 8 drives. The first 4 are regular SATA bays with hot swappable trays which pull out of the front. These can support 3.5-inch spinning drives and also 2.5-inch SATA SSDs. I have a mixture of both in there. Slots 3 and 4 will always present to your computer as individual drives, but those in slots 1 and 2 can be set up in a hardware RAID 1 configuration, meaning you get that redundancy for your backups. I'd recommend traditional spinning drives here simply because you get more storage for less money and speed isn't really an issue for this kind of usage. Ideally go for drives designed for NAS use as they are purpose built for the kind of long-term cold storage we're using them for here. Where do the other 4 drives go? Well, you take off the side of the unit and you'll find slots for 4 faster NVMe SSDs. The D8 hybrid connects to your computer via USB 3.2 and therefore all the drives in it have a theoretical maximum speed of up to 10 gigabits per second. This means you won't be maxing out the speed of most NVMe drives which you could put in there, but you'll still see faster transfer speeds than on your SATA drives or even SATA SSDs. The thing is with NVMe SSDs is, well, they aren't actually much more expensive than SATA ones at this stage, so you're getting more speed for a pretty similar price per gigabyte. And because those are so compact, it means the D8 hybrid can contain 8 drives in total with a similar footprint to a 4-bay NAS box. TerraMaster also make a smaller version which is slightly more affordable, the D5 hybrid, which has those 2 SATA slots on the front and 3 NVMe slots. On there you can set up the 2 SATA bays in a hardware RAID 1 configuration and then use the NVMe slots for day-to-day easily accessible hot storage, just like the D8 but with a few less drives. Is there anything I'm not keen on with the D8 hybrid? Well, it's all very plastic, but it's designed to be an affordable device and it's not like it's going to be thrown in my DJ bag. It lives on my desk at home, and it still feels sturdy enough and well designed. There's a fan in there to keep everything cool, and it's not especially noisy, even with spinning drives in 2 of the slots. If you went all SSD, it would be virtually silent in use. The other downside is that only the first 2 slots can be set up in that RAID configuration, so there's no option for a larger RAID 5 or anything like that, and if you do fill all the slots with drives, your computer will see, at a minimum, 7 different drives, which could get messy on your desktop. I don't have all of the slots filled up on the review unit right now, I've only got one NVMe drive in there, but personally I like the idea of just being able to throw in extra drives as my storage needs evolve. If you have a lot of data or a lot of drives that you want to keep in one place with that redundant backup and solid performance, the D8 Hybrid is a solid recommend from me.
So there you go, 5 methods that I would suggest you check out when it comes to backing up your music library. The main thing to take away from this episode though is that you need to have a backup strategy in place of some kind, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Even if you just get a single external drive and copy your music onto it today, that is at least a start. In the comments below, let us know how you back up your music and help out your fellow DJs by letting them know of any backup ideas which I might have missed or overlooked. Thanks for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And hey, if you haven't already, you can try Beatsource for free and join DJcity for just $10. The links are down in the description. I'll see you next time!